we let's start with the topic pharmacotherapy therapy of STDs first, and then we will see the various regimens used in treatment of urinary tract infections. So with that, I am starting our today's class. So you can see here that worldwide most adults acquire at least one sexually transmitted infection in some or other way because of many reasons, which you all know, which I am not going to discuss. The four C's of control are contact tracing, compliance with treatment, counseling on risk education, and any barrier method for protection. So these four C's we use to control the spread of sexually transmitted disease. As soon as we receive that a patient, we always go for contact tracing from where or what is the source, so that we can treat the source as well. So most of the time in STDs, we need to treat both the partners. It is not only the patient who is coming to you, but also the partner, because there are high chances that they are also infected with the same condition. And the compliance of the treatment should be increased. So we need to give such kind of regimens which are, very, so that the patient are compliant to it. Counseling is very, very important because of lack of sex education in our society. Counseling is what we needed very much, and any barrier method like condom is the mostly we promote, and government also promote that use of barrier method is very, very essential to prevent sexually transmitted diseases. So one of the sexually transmitted disease is urethritis. So which you can say that the infection and inflammation of urethra, and these are the possible microbes which can be responsible for urethritis. I am not going in detail of any microorganism which you need to read from your microbiology. So this you already know, this gonorrhea, diphtheria, gonorrhea, chlamydia, trachomatis, mycoplasma, ureaplasma, trichomonas, HSV. Why we need to know this spectrum? Because whenever we are giving any antimicrobial agent, we need to ensure that whether our drug is sensitive, whether this bacteria is sensitive to this drug or not. So because of the lot of concern about drug resistance, so it is very important to go for culture sensitivity testing, and you can find these organisms in case of urethritis, and then the report will also tell us that this organism is sensitive to which antimicrobial. So, and sometimes there is mixed infection as well. Clinical manifestation: the patient comes to you with the presentation of urethral discharge, dysuria, usually without frequency of urination. This is important because this frequency of urination mostly take us towards urinary tract infection. Mixed symptoms you can see sometimes, that both urethritis and UTI in the patient, and mostly the female patients of reproductive age group comes to you with this presentation. Very simple. This you can see in your slide right now. You can take a screenshot as well. That this is the treatment regimen for gonorrhea. Like we should give, and these are sometimes comes under fixed dose combination, and in government supply that as soon as the symptom, you spot diagnosis. You should make a spot diagnosis of that particular STD, that is urethritis. If you made, you can start treatment of this regimen of gonorrhea, or you can take the sample for culture sensitivity, and it will take 2 to 3 days for the report to come. So that time you will start, or you will change the treatment, revise the treatment according to the report. That is what we call definitive treatment. So empirical treatment, which you are giving with your guess or experience, but definitive treatment is something which is you are giving on the basis of the evidence. So gonorrhea, if gonorrhea is the causative agent, ceftriaxone 1 gram intramuscular or ceftriaxone, both are third generation cephalosporin, 1.5 gram intramuscular. So this is single dose plus azithromycin 1 gram oral tablet. This stat can be given to treat gonorrhea-induced urethritis. If chlamydia is the causative agent, erythromycin 1 gram per oral stat, yeah, or doxycycline 100 mg twice a day for 7 days is the regimen for treatment of chlamydia. For M. genitalium, azithromycin may be more effective. So again, single dose of 1 gram azithromycin can be given. Sexual partner of index case should receive the same treatment as I said. partner in cases of STDs are needed to treat as well. So these are three possible regimen for treatment of urethritis caused by gonorrhea, chlamydia, and mycobacterium. Second, uh, epididymitis. So this epididymitis is can cause epididymitis. And in men who practice insertive rectal intercourse or like in homosexuals, Enterobacteriaceae is the most common bacteria which is responsible for causing epididymitis. So these are the few information related to it. And the patient presented to you mostly, so almost always unilateral. This is one very important clinical picture of epididymitis, and it produces pain, swelling, and tenderness of epididymis with or without symptom of sign of urethritis. So this is uh, epididymitis for which we have this regimen. You can see almost the regimen is same, more or less same for all the conditions. So you need not to worry about remembering it. You can remember this whenever you give third generation cephalosporin, mostly in all the cases nowadays. Ceftriaxone 1 gram intramuscular single injection or cefuroxime 1.5 gram single intramuscular injection. But here the slight change, then urethritis, that we need to give doxycycline 100 mg twice a day for 10 days to the patient for treatment of epididymitis. If there is Enterobacteriaceae infection, levofloxacin 500 mg orally daily for 10 days is the dose. So this is the regimen for epididymitis in the in the case depending on the causative organism. Then comes vulvovaginal infection, where this is the spectrum of bacteria which can cause it. Again, almost same. And clinical manifestation you can see is vaginal discharge, vulvar pruritus, burning irritation, dysuria, and vulvar dyspareunia. So these, the patient comes to you with this presentation. So you need to diagnose it on the basis of clinical manifestation. You can start treatment, which we call empirical treatment, and then you send the sample for culture and sensitivity testing, where you will find a definitive organism and the sensitivity pattern. So you can revise your antimicrobial. If it is resistant, if it is sensitive, continue the same treatment. So that is what we call empirical treatment. So definitive treatment, sorry. So you should know what is empirical treatment, what is definitive treatment. Empirical treatment on the day the patient comes to you are starting, and definitive treatment when the investigation reports come and you are revising. Then this is what we can use to treat vulvovaginal candidiasis. Like, so these are antifungal topical agents which we read when we discussed antifungal agents. Miconazole, a single 1200 milligram vaginal suppository. So this is for local use. So a vaginal suppository of 200 milligram, 1200 milligram can be inserted in the vagina. Clotrimazole, another antifungal agent, 200 mg vaginal tablets daily for 3 days. So here this is the regimen that 200 mg, that is 200 mg basically, but because 100 mg of vaginal tablets are available, so 2 tablets can be taken daily for 3 days, or a single 150 milligram fluconazole, or in combination of both. Like you can give oral fluconazole 150 mg as well as along with some of the topical preparation like miconazole or clotrimazole, depending on the clinical feature of the patient. Then comes vulvovaginal trichomoniasis. So that above one is the fungal infection. Below you can see this where you can use anti-protozoal drug like metronidazole 2 gram stack orally, or you can give 400 milligram thrice a day for 7 days. So this is the choice you give to your patient. That is why we are saying that our target is to improve compliance so that the patient takes it and the break the chain of transmitted infection. So this whole thing you need to tell to your patient that whatever compliant, if you want to take, if the patient want to take 2 gram of metronidazole tablet single dose, very well. If not, then 400 mg, because 2 gram tablet is a big tablet, or two tablets of 1 gram is a big tablet, but still they preferred it because a single dose treatment is more compliant. Patients are more compliant. Otherwise, if someone has problem with 2 gram of tablet, you can give 400 mg smaller tablets for thrice a day for 7 days. And another option you can give to them to tinidazole 2 gram stack or 600 mg once a day for 7 days. So these two options we are available, and it must be patient's choice to take any of that. And again, treatment of sexual partner with the same regimen is required. Then if it is bacterial vaginosis, because this can be bacterial, fungal, protozoal. If it is bacterial, the mostly anaerobic bacteria are there. So again, metronidazole is the drug of choice. 500 mg twice a day for 7 days orally we can give, or 2% clindamycin cream vaginally each night for 7 days. So again, I told you for anaerobic bacteria infection, two drugs are very important and preferred. One is metronidazole, which is drug of choice most of the cases, and other one is clindamycin, the antibacterial, which is targeting on anaerobic bacteria. So these two options are there. Apart from that, 0.75% metronidazole gel vaginally twice a day for 5 days. So it is very important that which route you are using. For tablet, oral routes are available. Along with that, for topical treatment, you can add any of these two, cream or gel vaginally, for better and fast relief. Recurrence is common regardless of the regimen used. This is one problem with vaginosis, because sexually active patients go for unprotective sex, will come again and again with the same condition. So that's why counseling is very important, and promoting the barrier method is very important. Then comes another condition, pelvic inflammatory disease, where the infection that ascends from cervix or vagina to the endometrium. So now the why PID happens, if it remains untreated at the level of vaginosis, it can ascend to the genitourinary tract and can cause pelvic inflammatory disease. And again, the spectrum of bacteria and organism causing it is almost same. So gonorrhea, Trachomatis, and there is some new Prevotella, Peptostreptococci. When you read this in from microbiology, you will find these microorganisms can cause these infections. So treatment regimen is two. One is outpatient, or other one is inpatient, depending on the symptom of the patient. So outpatient regimen में again ceftriaxone 1 gram intramuscular single in combination with doxycycline 100 mg twice a day for 14 days, and in combination with metronidazole 500 mg for 14 days. So this is what we call triple regimen, and covering almost all the spectrum of bacteria, aerobic, anaerobic, gram positive, gram negative, because mostly it is mixed infection. So this is outpatient regimen. And inpatient regimen, that parenteral, is what we can give is cipotitan 2 gram. These are also cephalosporins, or cefixetine. So 2 gram IV 12 hourly cefotitan, 2 gram IV 6 hourly cefoxitin in combination with doxycycline, which is given orally 100 mg every 12 hours. Or another regimen is clindamycin 900 mg 8 hourly IV in combination with gentamicin. So you can see aminoglycosides here in this regimen. In case of gentamicin, loading dose of 2 milligram per kg, either IV or IM route, which is followed by 1.5 mg per kg of maintenance dose 8 hourly. So the regimen you can see right now in front of you is the two regimens based on the site of care, level of care. Like in OPD, you can use outpatient regimen, and if the severe symptoms are there, you can admit the patient and use this parenteral regimen for treatment of PID. Again, the male sex partner should be evaluated and treated empirically for gonorrhea and inflammatory infections. So mostly because of unhygienic practices of male partner, uh, female partner suffers a lot. So it is very very important to counsel the both the partners and treat both the partners to stop further spread. Then comes syphilis. I know that it is caused by and cases are acquired by sexual contact with infectious lesions like chancre, mucus, pads, skin rash, condyloma latum. Please read syphilis thoroughly from your province pathology because this is very very important topic to read. Otherwise, when it comes to this, you all need to know, and all these features like gamma, where you see neurosyphilis, cardiosyphilis, gamma, you just remember that these are the features of tertiary syphilis. So, on the basis of clinical manifestation, we can diagnose it as and it as early and late, and primary, secondary, and tertiary. Right? Then there is one congenital syphilis. Syphilis can be transmitted throughout the pregnancy. That is the vertical transmission. But fetal disease does not become manifest until after 4 months of gestation. So these are possible treatment regimen. You can see here for early syphilis, that is जो early latent के पहले है. So primary, secondary, latent, and tertiary, these are four terminology we use as far as syphilis is concerned. Latent is divided into early and late. So early latent and before it, like primary, secondary, early latent comes under early syphilis, where there are two regimen, and you can see benzathine penicillin and propan penicillin, very limited use nowadays. And this is one of the use where you remember that benzene penicillin and propan penicillin is used. Syphilis is you can see almost that syphilis is the only indication now for benzathine and propan penicillin. For other conditions, you will see other antimicrobial agents. So here comes benzathine penicillin, 2.4 million units intramuscularly stacked, single dose दे सकते हैं, and propan penicillin 1.2 unit, one intramuscular daily for 10 days. So these two regimens are available. Or in spite of that, we can give doxy 100 mg twice a day for 15 days, or ceftriaxone 1 gram intramuscular daily for 7 days, or erythromycin 500 mg 4 times a day for 15 days. So this all regimens are available. Mostly the injectable drugs like procan penicillin intramuscular daily and ceftriaxone 1 gram intramuscular daily is not recommended because of the compliance factor, because patient need to receive one injection daily for 7 or 10 days. So it's better to go either single intramuscular injection of benzathine penicillin or oral drug where doxycycline is best. So then comes late syphilis, late latent. You will see this regimen again. And the regimen is benzathine penicillin, where 2.4 unit IM weekly for 4 weeks is required. So there is a little different. In early syphilis, only single straight injection of benzathine is recommended, while for latent syphilis, 4 week weekly four injections every week till 4 weeks is required. And the duration of propan penicillin is also increased to 20 days from 10 days. Doxy also increased from, you can see in early, the doxy is 15 days. So almost double. The duration is almost double in latent syphilis. The drugs are same. So propan penicillin for ceftriaxone for 15 days. So all the regimens, the drug duration of treatment is increased. Now comes the tertiary syphilis, where there is neurosyphilis or cardiovascular important organ involvement, or if there is gammas, then you can give aqueous crystalline penicillin G. 18 to 24 million units per day intravenously, and it is given as divided dose of 3 to 4 million units every 4 hours through continuous infusion, and they should be given for 10 to 14 days. That means you need to, obviously with this symptom patient is admitted in IPD because it is a very severe condition, or we can give aqueous procaine penicillin G 2.4, double the dose you can see as compared to latent 1.2, 2.4 unit per day intramuscularly in combination with probenecid, and you know the rationale between combination of probenecid and penicillin, which is one of the most commonly asked question. Probenecid dose is 500 mg 4 times a day for 10 to 14 days. So this is the regimen for neurosyphilis. Then comes another condition, LGV, lymphogranuloma venereum, which is caused by Chlamydia trachomatis, and the treatment is in front of you right now. Just either you can give doxy 100 mg twice a day for 3 weeks, or azithromycin 1 gram orally or weekly for 3 weeks, which is quite good for compliance. And the drug which are given weekly, the problem with that the patient forget to take it. This is one problem with weekly tablets. Although they are very compliant because you need to take only one tablet in 1 week, but disadvantages are also there. Another third option is to give erythromycin 500 mg 4 times a day for 3 weeks. So these are the regimen here. Common thing is the duration of treatment in LGV is 3 weeks for all the regimen. Then comes zoonoses. Again, the regimens are in front of you. Please take a screenshot or whatever way you can if you are writing. So you need to remember option. If you can remember with each of the condition, because sometimes when we ask treatment of sexually transmitted disease, you need to write the regimen of treatment for each condition. Most of the condition which you can remember. So donovanosis can caused by granuloma inguinale, and the bacteria. It is also known as granuloma inguinale, which is caused by Klebsiella granulomatis, and treatment here is doxy 100 mg twice a day. See, you can see here the same treatment as LGB as far as doxy is concerned. As far as azithromycin is concerned, 1 week treatment is increased. Erythromycin is same. And one more option as far as donovanosis is concerned is ciprofloxacin 750 mg twice a day for 3 days. So most of the time you will see azithromycin or third generation cephalosporin or doxycycline in the regimen. So try to remember at least these drugs in all the conditions. Then comes chancroid, which is caused by Haemophilus ducrei, and the treatment is written in front of you. So either 250 milligram intramuscular injection of ceftriaxone will do, or single dose of azithromycin 1 gram is enough. Or if you are choosing erythromycin, maybe because of the availability of drug also. You don't think that if we have azithromycin 1 gram single dose, why we are choosing erythromycin? Sometimes the drug is not available and only available drug with you is erythromycin, then you will give it like that for 500 mg 4 times a day for 7 days. Or ciprofloxacin 500 mg twice a day, or doxycycline 100 mg BD for 7 days. So you will find doxy or azithro or third generation cephalosporin in all the regimens. So it is smarter way to remember it, that at least these three drugs you should know. And the dose are mostly same, only the duration and frequency is different in different conditions. Then comes genital herpes simplex, and if you remember, we already covered herpes in antiviral treatment. So acyclovir 400 mg 5 times a day. This I already told you in the regimen when I told you the indication of acyclovir. So either 400 mg 5 times a day or 800 mg thrice a day for 10 days can be used. Or its congenital valacyclovir 1 gram twice a day for 10 days can be given. Or famciclovir 200 mg thrice a day orally for 7 to 10 days can be given. Additionally, acyclovir ointment 5% can be also be recommended, can also be advised to the patient, which she or he or she has to take locally 6 times daily for topical use only. And if there is symptomatic recurrent episode, So the regimen is again you must start and for next 3 to 5 days. And in symptomatic recurrent episode, if there is recurrence, then topical acyclovir is ineffective. So don't waste money and time in procuring and giving and prescribing acyclovir in case of recurrent episode. Only uh, uh, systemic treatment is then justified. So to suppress recurrent episode, if you want a patient will not come with recurrence, then oral acyclovir 400 mg twice a day for 6 to 12 months. So the patients actually comes to you again and again in the OPD. You can identify those patients. In those patients with the acute treatment, we need to give them chronic treatment also for suppression of recurrent episodes. So for that, oral acyclovir 400 mg twice a day for 6 to 12 months can be given, or well, acyclovir 500 mg once a day can be given. So depending on the compliance and availability of drug, we can use any of the two. And patient with more than 9 episodes per year should take valcyclovir 1 gram OD or 500 mg BD. That is the double the dose. So, and the third one is famciclovir 250 to 500 mg twice a day for 6 to 12 months. So this is the regimen for prevention of recurrence. Okay. So on the patients which are frequently getting genital herpes simplex, for them this regimen should be used. Then comes human papilloma virus infection. So there are various strains. You need to read it again from microbiology and pathology. So 6 and 11 strain of HPV causes condylomata acuminata warts, genital warts, and 16 and 18 are responsible for cervical and anal cancer, and especially 16 is responsible for squamous cell, and 18 is mostly responsible for adenocarcinoma. These all are very important questions as far as pathology and microbiology is concerned. Here in pharmacology, we are mainly focused on the regimens. So HPV is transmitted by sexual intercourse, by oral sex, and possibly by touching of partner's genitalia. Okay, so these are the few conditions which are responsible for spread of HPV. Treatment here is this. You can see a very specific treatment and different from other STDs. Podophylotoxin 0.05% solution or gel is available, or 0.15% cream applied twice a day for 3 days. Please find out in your books about podophylotoxin, you will get some information. And then imiquimod is one of the available treatments. So in both the case, you can see the topical treatment is there for genital herpes. So 5% cream of imiquimod applied 3 times per week for up to 16 weeks, a long, very long duration treatment. Apart from that, there are other options to removal of the wart, like cryotherapy, surgical excision, intralesionally administered interferons, or laser surgery. So these are some new advancement in the treatment of genital warts. But as far as pharmaco therapy is concerned, two agents, you just remember the name, podophylotoxin and imiquimod are two agents topically used for treatment of genital herpes infection. Now let's talk about its prevention. So there are some quadrivalent vaccine by the name Gardasil, manufactured by Merck company, which contain HPV type 611, 1618, can be used. Bivalent vaccine is available by the name Cervarix. GSK is the company which manufactured it, and it contains only two strains. It covers two strains, 1619. It is mostly actually recommended for the female child, uh, for prevention of herpes in later stage. So to prevent from papilloma virus. What? Sorry, we are talking about HPV. I am wrongly saying herpes again and again. So what I am saying is for this papilloma virus, this podophylotoxin and imiquimod is available as pharmacotherapy treatment, and for prevention, a quadrivalent vaccine and bivalent vaccine for prevention from the infection caused by HPV, and recommended nowadays for female child mostly. All boys and girls at 11 years of age, as well as to young men and women 13 to 26 years of age who have not previously completed full series are the beneficiary for these vaccine. So both gender can take it, but mostly it is highly recommended for girls. So this is all about the treatment of sexually transmitted disease. Here I am launching one poll so that you can answer it here, and after that I will start UTI, which will take another 20 minutes. So take this, what according to you is the correct answer. Just okay. So the poll is in front of you right now. Please take one answer. Again, the voting line is open for next 2 minutes. 30 seconds elapsed. 21% voting is there so far. Okay, Shashwat, don't worry about it. I am telling you that at least whenever we ask a general question that write down the treatment of sexually transmitted disease, you people can write just 4 to 5 conditions you choose from this whatever topic I am discussing with you. 4 to 5 conditions. Just tell in this answer that these are 4 5 sexually transmitted disease conditions, and one or two regimen from those conditions you need to remember. Whatever you find very comfortable with, write that in those regimen, in those treatment. Okay, for example, you write that uh, there are many sexually transmitted diseases, for example, herpes, HPV, okay, syphilis, whatever you remember. And then one regimen from that, all the regimen available for herpes you can write. One regimen amongst all the regimen available for HPV infection you can write there. So this is how you can answer, or at least drug name if you can write is recommended. So 2 minutes are over. 44% of you are voted. I am closing this poll. The answer, the question is procaine penicillin is used in treatment of primary syphilis. Answer 72% of you marked it true, which is correct, and 28% marked false. I don't know why you marked it. I am telling you that these are the few indication, and maybe the only indication for procaine and medicine left nowadays is syphilis. So okay, 44% only voted out of 226 attendees. That's a very, very disappointing uh, involvement from your side. Anyways, let's continue with our next topic, a very small one again, pharmacotherapy of UTI. So again, the same kind of condition that I am going to discuss some regimens, whatever you can remember, good for you. And I am again telling you that most of the time you will see either cephalosporin third generation, that is ceftriaxone, or azithromycin or doxycycline. UTI maybe also you find these kind of drugs. So I'm not going in deep about the anatomy, but you can see that upper UTI जो होता है infection, we call it pyelonephritis, and lower UTI we call it cystitis. These two terminology are different for the site of involvement of urinary tract. So upper part pyelonephritis, lower part cystitis. Clinical syndromes may be asymptomatic bacteriuria or symptomatic bacteriuria. Symptomatic bacteria must be treated. Asymptomatic bacteriuria, depending on the load, we will see that also. Then there is one which we called COUTI, that is catheter associated urinary tract infection. This is very, very important and very, very common hospital acquired infection, basically HAI की category में आता है. So for prolonged, when we put prolonged catheter for a long time, screen is not visible. Just a minute, just a minute, just a minute. Okay, now is it visible? I'm very sorry. Okay, okay. Thank you, Shah. Sure. This is the first slide anyway. You have not missed any slide. So this is UTI, which is as per anatomy divided into pyelocystitis, upper part pyelonephritis, lower part cystitis. Clinical syndrome may be symptomatic, may be asymptomatic. And what I was saying is catheterized associated या hospitalized पेशेंट्स में जो यूटीआई होता है उसको हम कहते हैं काउटी CAUTI, that is catheter associated urinary tract infection. So if you are putting Polis catheter to the patient for chronically, it may lead to this condition. So very important to change the catheter is recommended. Very the most common pathogen which is responsible for urinary tract infection is E. coli. Whenever we do culture sensitivity, in 90% case we find E. coli as the positive organism for UTI. Then apart from that, other from the same family, like Proteus, Klebsiella, this you all must have read from your microbiology, which is very important about UTI and this family, which was UTI. Staph aureus, Staph saprophyticus, which is the most common cause in case of young women. UTI, which is not common in India, but overall in world, most of the cases Staph saprophyticus is the most common causative organism. But in India, E. coli again. In hospital-acquired UTIs, the Pseudomonas, which is very dangerous pathogen because it causes resistance, it develop resistance to many antimicrobial agents. Acinetobacter, Enterococci, and Candida are some causative pathogens. So now for treatment, we have a special group called urinary antiseptics, and the antimicrobial agent that attains antibacterial concentration mainly in urine with little systemic antibacterial effects are known as urinary antiseptics. So we found some antimicrobial agents which are having very less systemic antibacterial effect, but as soon as it reaches to the urine because of the uh, chemical composition of urine, they become very effective. So they are considered as urinary antiseptic and mostly used as first line in treatment of UTI and mostly useful in lower urinary tract infection, that is in cystitis. So a form of local therapy. So these are available agents. So the name given to nitrofurantine, methenamine, and nalidixic acid is as urinary antiseptic. So whenever somebody asks you what are urinary antiseptic, these three names you need to say: nitrofurantine, methenamine, nalidixic acid. So quinolones में आपने पढ़ा होगा ये. Nitrofurantine is activated by enzymatic reduction. So nalidixic acid you all know is quinolone. Nitrofurantine is reduction with the formation of highly reactive intermediates that damage DNA. This is the mechanism of action of nitrofurantine. So ये damage DNA पे attack करता है as a reactive intermediate that is like free radicals, and it is a bacteriostatic drug at the concentration of this 32 microgram per ml. But if the concentration raises to 100 microgram per ml, it is bactericidal as well. So it is concentration dependent killing activity, you can say. The antibacterial activity is higher in acidic urine. This is very important. Most of the time, you will find a irrational prescription where with all the antimicrobial agents for UTI treatment, most of the prescribers are writing alkalizers. ये common practice हो गई. It is a common practice now to prescribe alkalizers to make urine alkaline. But not all the antimicrobial agents are effective in alkaline urine. Some are effective in acidic urine like nitrofurantine. So whenever you find nitrofurantine along with alkalizing agent in the prescription, you can straightforwardly say that it is a rational prescription. So acidic urine it needs. Nitrofurantine is absorbed rapidly and completely from GI tract. So very good absorption and hence very effective drug in UTI. Plasma TF is 1 hour and about, so thrice a day or twice a day regimens are there about 40%, but the concentration in urine is high for long time. So you can see here plasma TF only 1 hour. In blood, are toxic to nephrons. So cystitis, as I told you, the indication, and you can see here the ADR. I am focusing on nitrofurantoin because it may not be covered in your antimicrobial class earlier. So we used to teach it here only. So mechanism of action you saw, pharmacokinetic you saw. Now the ADRs which are related to nitrofurantoin, they are not devoid of any ADR. Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea is the common, but hypersensitivity in many patients can be seen like chills, fever, all the symptoms of hypersensitivity. We are not going to discuss it again and again. Acute pneumonitis can happen. Interstitial pulmonary fibrosis can happen. So there are some drugs you will see in anti-cancer where you will find pulmonary fibrosis is the ADR. So remember, nitrofurantoin is one of the antimicrobial which is also responsible for pulmonary fibrosis. Like you will read busulfan in cancer chemotherapy. It is known drug to cause pulmonary fibrosis, and it can also cause polyneuropathies like impaired renal function, and in person with long treatment, polyneuropathies are common. So because of these ADRs, uh, sometimes we need to go for second line treatment, which we'll see. It is contraindicated in pregnancy. Nitrofurantoin cannot be given. Individuals with impaired renal function is the limitation. G6PD deficiency may cause hemolysis, and it cannot be given to children younger than 1 month. So we have several other drugs also. So in case nitrofurantoin is not useful, we can choose that. Then comes second one, methenamine, which is also known as and again acidic urine is essential to release the formaldehyde, which invades the bacteria. So again, that alkaline is irrational. Then mandelic acid given as methenamine mandellate is excreted in urine, and it lowers the urinary pH and promotes decomposition of methenamine. So this is required. So you need acidic pH, a low pH to nitrofurantoin methenamine to act. So we need to give acidifying agent rather than alkalizing agent. But in common practice, we prescribe, most of the prescriber prescribe alkalizing agent without knowing the fact that the drug might not be effective in with that. But there are some drugs which needs alkaline pH. So if, for that we need to prescribe alkalizing agent. Its use is restricted to chronic and resistant UTI. The UTI resistant to nitrofurantoin and drugs, then we can use it because of poor efficacy, and it causes gastritis as well. Then comes urinary analgesic to remove to see. So far we were seeing urinary antiseptic, and why we are calling it antiseptic, because we are thinking that it is acting on living surface but outside the body. So in urine only it is getting effective and acting. Then urinary analgesic में phenazopyridine is one of the agent to control pain related to UTI. Although we can use our simple analgesics and NSAIDs drug as well, but it is specifically for UTI which exerts analgesic action in urinary tract, and it leads to symptomatic relief of burning sensation, dysuria, and urgency due to cystitis. It does not have any antibacterial property. It is purely analgesic, and side effects may be nausea and epigastric pain. So this is the brand name Pyridium, which you will find in prescription of many patients with UTI. That nitrofurantoin, so we need to give acidifying agent, not with nitrofurantoin. Other regimens, because these are the drugs whose pharmacotherapy we need to discuss. Apart from that, now whatever regimen we will see, the pharmacology is already been completed, so we are going to see the regimens only. These are fluoroquinolones which can be used. Cotrimoxazole, you know, is a very good drug, but a lot of resistance nowadays. Then comes cephalosporin. Then comes the combination of amoxicillin and clavulanic acid. Fosfomycin is another drug. If you remember your cell wall synthesis inhibitor, this was there. Nitrofurantoin we already discussed. Chloramphenicol is the broad spectrum penicillin. So this slide is very important to note. Please read it properly so that whenever you prescribe, you should not go in the direction of UTI. Favorable urinary pH for antimicrobial action. So we divide it into three. Acidic pH. The antimicrobial agents needed acidic pH are nitrofurantoin, methenamine, tetracycline, and cloxacillin. Okay, so these four drugs, mostly two are the urinary antiseptic. you need to prescribe acidifying agent, some acid along with these drugs. And with cotrimoxazole, aminoglycosides, cephalosporin, fluoroquinolones, you need to prescribe an alkalinizing agent. Do not cross that alkalinizing agent with nitrofurantoin or acidifying agent with cotrimoxazole. Otherwise, you will, decrease the efficacy of your treatment. And with chloramphenicol and ampicillin, there is no matter whatever be the pH, it will act. So this you need to remember. It is very very important as far as practical prescription is concerned. Now there is National Treatment Guidelines for Antimicrobial Use in Infectious Disease 2016, which is run by National Center for Disease Control. So there are guidelines which say that asymptomatic bacteria not be treated except women and immunocompromised patients. So there was a lot of hue and cry about whether we should treat asymptomatic bacteria or not. So if the UTI, until unless the patient is pregnant, because it is incidental finding sometimes that in urine report you find this bacteriuria 10 raised to 5, more than 10 raised to 5 per field. Then if it is asymptomatic and the patient is either immunocompromised or pregnant, then only we will treat, otherwise we will not treat. All cases of dysuria may not be UTI, so don't consider all the dysuria cases be UTI. It may be other sexually transmitted disease. So diagnosis of UTI should be made cautiously. So now if the condition is acute uncomplicated cystitis, you can see the empirical regimen and alternate regimen. So you can start with nitrofurantoin 100 mg twice a day for 7 days, or cotrimoxazole 960 mg twice a day for 3 to 5 days, or ciprofloxacin 500 mg for 3 to 5 days. These are first preferable drugs. If you are not able to give these drugs due to many factors, you can go for alternate therapy, that is ceftriaxone 250 mg twice a day for 5 days, or cefixime. So at least remember nitrofurantoin and cotrimoxazole and ciprofloxacin because they are the first line. This regimen, please remember it for treatment of acute uncomplicated cystitis. There is NICE guidelines 2018 which recommended pimecillam new agents, a 400 mg first dose followed by 200 mg thrice a day for 3 days. No need to remember, but just name this name, pimecillam. This drug is used in treatment of UTI. Then fosfomycin, the only use you will see one. So that is very very good for many patients, that only a single dose, 3 gram sachet. This contains a dry powder which should be mixed in a 200 ml of water and taken, but because of its acute side effect, it is not recommended now. Then another condition is acute uncomplicated pyelonephritis, that is the upper part of GI, urinary tract. Here you can see the change in treatment, that from oral drugs, parenteral drugs are required, like amikacin, 1 gram once a day, intramuscular or IV, or gentamicin 7 mg per kg per day. And this complete total duration of treatment is 14 days, and we need to monitor renal function closely because aminoglycosides are responsible for nephrotoxicity. Alternatively, we can give tetracycline tazobactam combination 4.5 gram. So you can remember the name of the drug. If you are not able to remember the dose and duration, please at least remember the name which can be given. So here for upper part of UTI, you can see aminoglycosides are the first choice, either amikacin or gentamicin, and then piperacillin, tazobactam. These are penicillin group of drug, or third generation cephalosporin like ciprofloxacin, or imipenem group of drug like ertapenem can be given. Okay, so this is for upper part of infection. Then if it is complicated pyelonephritis, the alternative comes forward, that piperacillin tazobactam is now first line, for which can be replaced, or other substitute is amikacin or cefoperazone sulbactam combination, or imipenem and meropenem. These are higher end antibiotics which are reserved for very very serious conditions like complicated pyelonephritis. You will But nowadays you will see meropenem and imipenem used right from the day one for very small infections also. This is what we say the irrational use of antimicrobial, and unfortunately we are moving towards post antibiotic era. Now most of the organisms are becoming resistant to these drugs. So that's why we will have one small group discussion on rational use of antimicrobial where we will discuss this. Then this is one condition, acute prostatitis in males, where the empirical treatment is doxycycline 100 mg twice a day for 2 to 3 weeks, or cotrimoxazole 960 mg BD for 2 to 3 weeks, or ciprofloxacin 500 mg twice a day for 2 to 3 weeks. This is first line treatment, or if in case they are not available or you are not able to give it, the combination alternate AMA depending on the condition of the patient. We can use parenteral treatment, which is written here like piperacillin tazobactam or cefoperazone sulbactam, or higher end antibiotics like ertapenem, imipenem, meropenem, the same group, different drugs. Okay, so this is all about that. Now, very important to see this condition where UTI in pregnancy. So fluoroquinolones, you all know that it is contraindicated in first trimester, because first trimester is the period of organogenesis. Almost all the drugs are contraindicated, but we need to weigh the benefit risk ratio, and on that basis we need to choose our treatment. Cotrimoxazole is also contraindicated in first trimester. Doxy is not recommended in nursing mother. So asymptomatic bacteria is by definition, as I told you, more than 10 to the 5 colony forming unit per ml of urine. अगर आपको मिलता है, डिटेक्ट होता है बैक्टीरिया, तो इट इज कॉल्ड एज बैक्टीरियूरिया विदाउट सिम्टम, and it should be into urine culture often 2 to 7 days apart. So to consider it, but see, if there is symptomatic case, then there is no need to find out whether there is Nastro 5 bacteria or not. But if it is asymptomatic case, it is very important to find out, because we need to treat on that basis. So nitrofurantoin is given in pregnancy. Again, as I told you, nitrofurantoin is not safe in pregnancy, but if risk if benefit outweighs the risk, it can be used. Otherwise, it cannot be used. So the choice of nitrofurantoin in pregnancy is very dicey. But penicillins are safe, so we can go for amoxicillin, and cephalosporin are also safe, so we can go for that. So as I as I am telling you again and again, it is totally based on risk benefit ratio. So always go for safe choice. Amoxicillin is the safest choice. Nitrofurantoin is very effective, and in first trimester it is more dangerous. So in second or third trimester we can choose it. So this is all about the treatment of UTI. Again, I am launching one last poll to antimicrobial to see your attentiveness, so that uh, we can finish here our antimicrobial completely.